Sing hallelujah, we're finally leaving the European Union, and it might be the beginning of the end of the bloc. For someone like me, this is a moment we've waited for so long. I opposed Britain joining the European Union without a referendum, without our consent, all the way back in 1973. I was a tea and tobacco boy for the late and great Tony Benn in the referendum campaign in 1975. And in advancing years, I was one of the leaders of the victorious campaign in 2016 in the great Brexit referendum. But for me, unlike for others in the leadership of that campaign, Brexit was a necessary but not sufficient condition for a better Britain, for the Britain I want to see. But it was necessary. It's not sufficient, but it was necessary, because the kind of Britain I want to see is illegal under the very articles of faith of the European Union. It's the beginning of the end for the bloc, in my view, for precisely the reason that we voted to leave it. When it was just a common market, I was against it, because it locked out the people of the Commonwealth who we'd stood shoulder to shoulder with whilst picking their pockets for centuries. I was against it, but I could live with it. But it quickly became obvious that a common market was not all they had in mind. What they sought to build was a European super-state without the consent of the people, of the sovereign states of Europe which made it up, and a super-state with no democracy at all. As Mr. Benn used to say, if we are ruled by people that we didn't elect and cannot remove, then we are no longer living in a democracy. And that's what Britain and all the other members of the European Union currently have, though in our case we're out of here very, very quickly indeed. The rulers of the European Union are people we don't even know, whose names we can't pronounce and would fail to read off the page. Yet they set the parameters for the British economy and many other aspects of our lives, even though we never chose them to do so. I want to see a Britain slipping its moorings from the failing old economies of the European Union and setting sail into the world, so that we have a foreign policy which is different from both the United States and the European Union, where we're not told we must sanction country after country after country, and we're not told we must contribute to a European army which will be used, like in France right now, on the streets of European cities to keep the people down in the interests of neoliberal orthodoxy. I want to see a Britain which can identify its strategic industries and support them, if necessary, by printing money, if necessary, by running a deficit. Let me give you an example. The British steel industry is, without any doubt, a strategic industry. Every country that calls itself developed needs to be able to make its own steel. But the vagaries of the free market have killed steelmaking in Britain. We, if we remained in the EU, would not be allowed to do anything about it. I want to see the public ownership of the commanding heights of the British economy. I want to lock Sir Richard Branson and other privateer, buccaneer, free market capitalists out of our public services. If we'd remained in the European Union, we would not be allowed to do that. Now, that's a very different set of reasons for wanting to Brexit than some of my other fellow leaders of the Brexit campaign in 2016. Just one more point. If we had left, as I urged us to do, on the morning that we decided to leave, we would have been much better off. We would not have owed the European Union more than 40 billion. We would not be subject to their fishing fleet raids around our coast. We would not be under the auspices of the European Court of Justice. We'd be in control of our own borders, our own resources, and we would already have made many free trade agreements with different parts of the world. If we'd left, say that we will not undercut the European Union by cutting the living standards, the protections of our workforce. We will do so because we're going to rebuild manufacturing and trading in Britain. If we'd done that back in 2016, just think where we would have been. Anyway, Parliament, after 4 years of trying to block the democracy of the British people that chose to leave, 17.5 million of us, has finally been overcome. The people have spoken. The people have triumphed. The people have prevailed. And that's why, in a matter of hours, we'll be leaving the European Union. Good riddance to bad rubbish.
Most people have secrets, even the most unlikely.